Welcome back for panel two. We just have been talking about some of the fantastic career outcomes that specialized masters are generating, and a lot of focus on the masters in business analytics, which is a wonderful transition to the second session of the day, because of course the MSBA, as we now describe it, really is a very hot graduate management degree program. And I'm sharing this session with two schools that offer incredible options. Our focus is going to be on the student experience, because of course, in addition to all of the skill sets that you'll be developing, you're part of a vibrant and dynamic community that will be part of the next steps, both at a professional level and the support that that can provide, but all of those weddings and opportunities for lasting friendship. So we'll get started, and it's a pleasure to welcome Rebecca Watts. Rebecca is Director of Graduate Admissions at the Zicklin School in Baruch. You can see that New York skyline behind her, and always delivering on his promise for an intelligent future. It's lovely to welcome back Kevin Dietrich. Kevin is the Director of the Masters in Business Analytics at the Tepper School at CMU. Both of you, we've talked about portfolios because within Zicklin, whether it's the Masters in Finance, Information Systems, Quant Methods, or Kevin, you know a lot about the Product Management Masters, computational finance. I think we'll focus a lot on the MSBA, but just perhaps a word from both of you about options and choice. Rebecca, when someone approaches you and like a kid in a candy store looks at all of these different options, how do you like to sort of counsel them and just think about what might be the right program and the right fit for them?
Absolutely. So we have 4 different data science focused specialized master's programs. So we have MS Statistics, Quantitative Methods of Modeling, Information Systems, and MS in Business Analytics. And so the first thing is kind of trying to figure out how quantitative of a program are you looking at. I would say our business analytics program is for everybody from kind of data scientists that need to learn the business side of implementation and operations to data savvy managers that need to learn the data side. And so it is the most kind of cross-section between storytelling with data to be able to implement business changes. And so, yeah, we just kind of trying to figure out what their goals are. And then to your point about choices, if they are looking at the MS in Business Analytics, there are 3 specializations. One of them is very new. So we have data analytics, which is kind of our more general, what you'd expect in the business analytics program. We also have marketing analytics, which is a really hot, valuable area of employment, especially for people coming out of undergrad. And then we also have accounting analytics, which is really the future of accounting. So people that have an accounting background, maybe already have I've already sat for the CPA, they get a lot of benefit from the accounting analytics specialization.
And when we start to talk about the future of a sector, whether it's accounting or marketing or banking and healthcare, I suppose, Kevin, this feeds into the words behind you at Tepper about that intelligent future. I mean, digging down into these different levels as we look at the different program options, what Rebecca's implied is that Masters in Business Analytics will open up avenues across so many different industries and sectors. That's not something that the applicant has to decide right away. That's presumably part of the program itself.
Yeah, that's very true, Matt. When we get into things like career counseling, I think we've seen across business schools, sort of the traditional method is to discuss these different verticals of consulting or finance, investment banking, operation management, and so on and so forth. And I think what makes that sort of model challenging in a good way for a business analytics program is that our graduates can really find themselves out in any number of different fields and different industries. And I think the impact of analytics across these different fields and industries is really, in my opinion, very fascinating. And I get to see this every day. Right now, our students are working on their capstone projects, just as an example, and our students are working on relevant topics and super relevant industries. Not a lot of folks a couple of years ago found themselves really discussing supply chain and trucking and railway operations. But here we are today, and our students are working on capstone projects in both of these industries, as well as a number of other industries. So I think that's what I find most comforting about this field, is that when our students come into the program, they really do have that time to kind of sit down and figure out what sort of industry do I want to get into post graduation.
Right. And presumably, Rebecca, skills that will be great for that first position out of school, but they will continue to adapt and evolve and will serve them 5 years, 7 years, 10 years on, the next stages of their career.
Yeah. And I think one of the analogies that I like that for the prospective students on the webinar today that I'd like to share is has to do with looking at the job descriptions of the kind of job that you would like to be eligible for when you get out. So you want to review, that you want to kind of tell a story with data, you want to implement business policies, you want to do that. So you start looking at job descriptions. And then I think of it kind of like in a football scenario. So say that you see a football player at a party and you're like, oh my gosh, I love football. And they're like, that's great. What's your favorite team? And you're like, I don't know the name of any of the teams, like the major who's really playing. And they're like, okay, well, like, do you like college or professional? And they're like, is there a difference in those kind of leagues? And then they're like, well, what position do you play? I don't play, but do you know any of the positions? And so I kind of use that as a template to ask yourself those questions so that you can have conversations with people that are out doing what you want to do, so that you can carry that kind of conversation. Because if you think about it, it's like, how are you going to relate to this football player when you can't show that you know anything about what they're doing? And I think data analytics and data science is definitely one of those buzzwords right now that people be like, I want to work in data science. And you're like, what does that mean? And they're like, there's a lot of opportunity and like potentially money and jobs in it right now. And so we encourage students to start taking it a step further and start looking at job descriptions. And then luckily within the program, a lot of their projects have wide perimeters, so they can kind of create a portfolio of doing what these employers are asking for, and they can choose how they interact with the prompt and kind of design things around healthcare or supply chain or whatever it may be with how they are trying to present themselves to an employer or tell that football player about a project that they've recently done and their experience with it.
Well, we are a day away from season 3 of Ted Lasso, where, of course, football and soccer mean two very different things. Kevin, I could ask you to explain the offside laws of either of those two, but that would take the rest of the panel, I'm sure. What Rebecca's describing, and as we think about that both through the lens of business analytics, but equally, people say, well, I want to be a product manager in a very broad sense, or supply chain. How do you then like to sort of hold up that mirror and help them to explore and tease out either a sector or particular focus that they can then really start to think deeply about?
Yeah, and I think that's a really critical question and critical part of the experience, because a lot of our students are coming into this program generally earlier in their careers, right? So they don't have a ton of experience to say, well, I really liked this, or I did not like that. So having the opportunity to hold up that mirror is a really important piece. Here at Tepper, students will have a personalized career coach that will work with them one-on-one throughout the duration of their program here. They will also have the opportunity to get leadership development and coaching that, in my opinion, is C-suite level. So access to two really neat resources that allow them to be introspective and introspective in different ways as well. It's not, when you're going through something like leadership development, you don't think exactly, well, how does this correlate into, what type of role I'm looking for? But there are sort of these cross-sectional relationships between your leadership development and sort of how you're approaching your career search. The other piece that I'll mention is that I think so much of it is about just exposure and meeting people that have worked in and around a variety of different types of companies in different industries, startup and small companies to large multinational companies as well. So we try to bring those folks in in as informal of a setting as we can possibly make it, so that it's interactive, it's engaging. You're able to hear that person's story, hear their career journey, and also really engage with them in the conversation. So we try to do that on sort of a weekly basis here at Tepper. And I think just to kind of give a little bit of a sampling of a couple of different areas, these are all kind of different ways in which we try to engage students in kind of thinking outside of the box, right? You may have come in and you're you know, laser focused on this job and this role, but while you're here, just think about some other different options. And even if you don't end up in some of these different alternatives, just simply learning from the experience of people who've worked in these spaces will be truly beneficial to students while they're on campus.
Right. And those different communities and shared experiences, Rebecca, whichever of the MSc programs at Zicklin, including business analytics, for many, it will be a return to their studies. You know, that they might have been out, some are coming straight through from college, but others, you know, 2 years, 12 years out of school and then coming back. So just let's get a bigger picture of Zicklin, and of course that skyline behind you, the school, you know, what it's known for, and a culture that they're now going to be embracing and is going to be so much part of their next steps.
Absolutely. So a little bit about Zicklin is that we're part of Baruch College, which is part of the City University of New York. So it's a system of schools. I compare it to, you know, the SUNY or University of California, University of Texas. It's a system of schools, but it covers about 13 schools in the 5 boroughs of New York City. So we're located in Manhattan. The Zicklin School of Business at Baruch College. Baruch has always been known as a business school, a finance school. It actually started as a school of commerce in Lower Manhattan. So you can see we've got 100 years because our school as a business school, we're over 100 years old alone as a business school. And so it was really made for creating opportunity for everyone to be able to go to business school, rather than people just that could afford a private education in New York City that was already existing. So that's a little bit about the ethos and opportunity. We are really proud of being financially accessible to people, having a high return on investment. And then in terms of your question about the student experience, what was the second part of that question again?
Well, I suppose just in terms of campus culture, because there you have, you know, New York on your doorstep, and how that influences the sort of experience.
Yeah, so one thing that's interesting about our Master's of Science programs is that they are all outside of the hours of a 9 to 5. So even if you come here as a full-time student, maybe from another country, you will be in class from about 5:50 to 8:50 with people that are very much so professionals in the industry. So that allows students, maybe if you're an international student, you have the ability to take advantage of CPT during the day or other internships, curricular practical training as part of your I-20 student visa. And so what's nice is whether or not you're full-time or part-time, sometimes there's a big division over the people that have left the workforce and the people that are still working. And I think it's really nice to be able to have the combination of both of them in the class together. Yeah, one funny situation about the fact that we have people that are full-time students and then people in class before is that it is not uncommon that we have somebody that did an interview earlier that day, and the person that they did an interview with is in their class that night, and they're like, oh, hello, because you know, New York City is a pretty tight place, and so there's definitely a lot of overlap between the students and rubbing shoulders with people that are already employed at all kinds of sometimes higher up jobs.
I think that's really, really interesting, Rebecca. I think maybe while we wait for Matt to rejoin here, we can kind of keep going back and forth. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of what the student campus life is like, given what you just stated about sort of the timing of your classes, and you kind of have the day to yourself. Talk a little bit about your campus life.
So our campus, it's a vertical we call it the vertical campus because it's a high rise. So it's very different than the Ivy campus that's very sprawling. You are in the midst of the city. It is bustling. It's just a high-rise building, so you take elevators up and down. Again, the students they have it nice because the school, basically the undergrads are not in the building in the evening, so it's kind of a graduate school building after 5 o'clock. And so it's definitely an urban campus. we don't really have much housing. There is a little bit of housing, but it's very different than a lot of different, I'm sure, Carnegie Mellon and other more residential colleges.
I love this idea that, you know, the buildings, there's so many buildings that empty out at night, and that's when yours fills up and you've got students, you know, all bustling in for, what was it, the 5:50 start.
Yeah.
Now,
So everyone's in class
school
together, whether or not they're full-time or part-time. And I think that that's nice because all the students that are maybe straight up from undergrad that are full-time students are in class and working on projects with people that a lot of our students are, you know, older and are working and getting their master's degree while pursuing their full-time job, and sometimes, you know, very high leadership positions that can help reach a hand out to the other students in their class professionally.
Kevin, Rebecca had already, you know, Zicklin within Baruch and the entire system across the 5 boroughs. The relationship of Tepper, I think, is, you know, really defined as part of Carnegie Mellon. I think there are more graduates of CMU working on the West Coast than graduates from Stanford. Talk a little bit about that relationship and perhaps how that has shaped and influenced programs like business analytics or product management that have emerged across different schools within the university.
Yeah, I think that's a really important note. You know, as we've kind of, Matt, you may have heard me kind of talk about this before, but as we've conceived of this idea of a business analytics program here at Tepper, right, and we talk about the intelligent future, that sort of hallmark of the school here is really born out of you know, our origin, right? When we talk about business education at Carnegie Mellon and at the Tepper School, we've always talked about management science, and a huge part of that has been the quantitative nature of how business education goes here, how business is taught. And so for all of our history, we've operated in this way. And so it was just a really nice sort of niche fit into designing and implementing this business analytics program here at Tepper School. It fits really nicely within the broader context of Tepper, but also Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, where we talk about, you know, CMU, of course, the home of AI, and just the startup and sort of tech culture that exists here in Pittsburgh around autonomous vehicles and artificial intelligence, machine learning. So much of that it just fits so nicely into sort of what this program is about. So we fit very well into sort of the culture and ecosystem of Carnegie Mellon, of the city of Pittsburgh, and as you've mentioned, you know, absolutely, alumni coast to coast internationally as well. Just again, because of the relevance, I think Rebecca at the start of the conversation just mentioned, you know, how relevant business analytics is nowadays, and I think that this program really kind of drives that home.
Right. In interaction, I mean, all those business analytics students, Rebecca, but, you know, will in adjacent classrooms looking at quant methods or real estate, is there this sense of a wider network, a bigger community, and how students across different programs will then connect and you know, enjoy and share part of that experience together?
Absolutely. So their electives, they really are taking, you know, I feel like where they shop for their electives is out of other specialized master's curriculum. So we have lots of special topics, lots of electives, but there's a lot of overlap. So one of the things that we talk about, you know, if you're looking at information systems or business analytics, depending on what classes you take, you can get a pretty similar education. They're not entirely different. You can choose to take classes on certain programming, certain concepts, but you could also have them look very different. And so the thing that we always kind of hone in on for students is it's not the degree that they put on their resume. It's not that they have it, it's how they communicate it to others and how they pull the story together to be able to represent themselves. So you can't just rely on saying, I have it, I have this degree, trust me, I can do anything. Your resume could look a lot more data focused with an MS in marketing than it does for an MS in quantitative methods of modeling or statistics based on their personal branding and the story that they're telling. And so, you know, we always bring it back to, that's great that you have this curriculum, you have flexibility within it, But the real question is, how are you going to tie this together to the value that you can offer somebody? How are you going to have your resume show what you want to be doing and what you can do rather than what you have done? And so I think there's a lot of strategy there, and that's where our Graduate Career Management Center comes in, which is a phenomenal, very robust department that works. We have both, career coaches, and then we have external relations. And to what Kevin was saying, we believe that education, especially graduate education, should be personally and professionally rewarding. And part of that is individual, intrapersonal growth. And so one of the things that many of our students take advantage of is personal assessments, the what's it called? Professional interest inventory, strengths finders, some different kind of things to be able to figure out what are their weaknesses, what can they work on, what kind of things can they focus on in clubs to maybe push themselves into, a strength area that is currently maybe holding them back. So I think all of that kind of ties together with not just taking a degree at face value. It's about how you tie it together with your personal growth, your experiences, and your branding of your degree to the outside world.
Right. And as we look at personal and professional, Kevin, as you were describing, the MBA, of course, fabled for soft skills, behavioral skills, as we now perhaps describe them, whether it's networking and interviewing or presenting and storytelling, but that could be very much part of these specialized masters too. How do you balance both those core quant and analytical skills, computational skills that they're developing with other behavioral skills that will serve them so well in the workplace?
Yeah, and that's a piece I don't want to lose here either, right? I'm a big proponent of the soft skills, especially in areas like this one. Our curriculum is designed such that students are taking a set of courses in the data sciences, the tech side, if you will, and they're taking a set of courses that are on the business side, including organizational behavior, communications courses. So within the confines of the classroom, our students absolutely are going to graduate with the necessary tech skills to be effective at their jobs that they land once they've completed the program. But I think what's most important, and what I always implore our students not to lose sight of, is the fact that you can have all the technical and data analytical skills in the world, but if you can't design and convey a compelling story with that data and the findings that you've pulled from that data, you're no further along than square one. And so that side of the soft skills, right? Managing and working with other people, communicating effectively, telling an effective story with and through data. All of those things are just so critical. And we have, of course, the sort of blended classroom component, but also outside of the classroom as well. The students have the opportunity to build their network, build their brand while they're here, connect across our programs and across our cohorts, across full-time versus part-time modalities. We'll bring in, I kind of alluded to kind of our seminar series a little bit earlier on. We also do, outside of that, we do academic and professional development outside of the classroom too. So our students who will come in during orientation, one of the first workshops they're going to get to sit down and do is a design thinking workshop, right? I want our students to explore this year, use it as a kind of safe to fail launch into their careers where they can make mistakes and learn from them comfortably and safely here. And so I think that aspect of creative and design thinking is important for us from the get-go. So that's just kind of a neat anecdote of a type of workshop that we'll bring in for students to do. So all of this, I think, is relevant. Again, I'll kind of reiterate, as the students probably get tired of me doing. The tech skills are here. Our students are going to get them. It's the other piece that will really differentiate you: your ability to work with people, your ability to convey messages effectively and efficiently, that will make students stand out, not just in the program and after graduation, but throughout the rest of their careers too.
Yeah, Kevin has described, Rebecca, a safe space, for sort of experimenting, and if you fail, really, it's just then how you sort of bounce back. Given the evening class formats, from after 5:30 in the evening through to close to 9 p.m., how can they then use the rest of the day, those full-time students, perhaps the international students, then with everything that they're learning in the classroom, to put that into effect in a professional environment? Is there opportunities for what they'll do during the day? Many no doubt already have positions, and they're bringing that learning directly into their professional lives.
Absolutely. So we have a practicum for the business analytics program. So that's usually takes place on a Saturday. So a portion of it is kind of taking on a consulting kind of role in terms of working with a real company. They basically are able to kind of bid on which company they want. We've got corporate, private, nonprofit, all kinds of industries there. And so they do get that experience. A lot of our students do work on internships and kind of side projects throughout their time in the program, maybe working with a professor. There's a lot of projects that are applied. So even if you are, even throughout the program being employed, there's examples like City Bike, which is big in Manhattan. They do a project every year where they look at heat maps. They look at all kinds of data that is from City Bike that is up to date, and they can make recommendations on where to change City Bike locations and how to measure the impact of that. So those are all things that our students are able to add to their resume to build as they go. And then there's clubs and data analytics projects that they can do. Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you mentioned that students have said, "Oh, we've heard Kevin remind us of this before." But as you think about the individuals that join you at the start of the program, all of that initial excitement, optimism, certain apprehension maybe, and then as you look at them through graduation, what do they often reflect back in terms of that both personal and professional journey that they've taken with Tepper to then step out? Do you see this sort of remarkable difference from the individual you welcomed to those that you then wave off to the next steps of their career?
Yeah, I'll add a disclaimer as I start here, Matt, that we're in our first iteration of our full-time program. So my graduating cohort that's going out the door this May will be my first one. But I think we're at kind of the 3-quarter mark here, if you will. And certainly some of those observations have occurred as we near the last quarter of the program. I think one is just this idea of kind of navigating a change in your life. A lot of our students are coming in, not necessarily all, but a good number are coming in straight from undergrad, and the remainder coming in somewhere with 1 to 3 years of work experience. So regardless of which bucket our students fall into, there's sort of a change that's going on here for them, right? And the outcome is an exciting one. All of them, right, regardless of if it's 0 or 3 years of experience, they're still in the very early stages of their career, and they're very much using this program as kind of a launch point into that early part of their career. And so over the course of this year, I see that excitement that comes with that. I see students have really transformed. I've talked a little bit about kind of the storytelling side of an analytics program. And I've seen students kind of grow more comfortable with that over the course of the year. They've really, for the first time for a lot of them, needed to develop a personal brand. They've needed to network. They've needed to start to really build a foundation from kind of the personal side of what their business career will be for the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that is something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable when they get here. But we really kind of have the conversation early on that you should be knee deep in talking to people that you've never met before, reaching out to people that you've never met before, getting to know people, getting to talk about yourself. This is a really hard thing to do. And I see that as students kind of walk out the door there, they've become much more comfortable with who they are because they've had to do these things, comfortable with themselves as a professional, firm in their footing as they walk out the door here in the next couple of months. And I think that's the biggest change, is these things that really are checklist items that students need to do every day and every week have put them in a situation where they're growing really as a person early on in their career.
Rebecca, and very rewarding as you think about new programs. Well, how might that attract this audience? And we're hearing this from corporates, and then see it playing out to such success, and all of that within the context of New York. Does that give you access to guest speakers, levels of corporate connection, conferences, just how they can then leverage the city of New York as part of their Zicklin experience?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a saying that New York is your campus, because like I said earlier, the campus is a vertical building. So everyone, it's a sprawling, it's like a playground for finance and for business. And so we have a lot of lunch and learns, and we're able to do company visits. We have lots of alumni at every company. So there's lots of events there connecting people. And I think the big thing is that I'm very confident that students will never run into a lack of opportunities. It's really they're a kid in a candy shop, and they have to be strategic about what they do choose, because you can do everything. And with business analytics, it can be so broad that you could almost leave with less direction than you came in with, because you want to, and it's great when you can go different directions, but you're going to want to do a resume for one direction and for the other direction, rather than spreading yourself so thin. So I think if people can be strategic about what they take advantage of, who they meet, how they're following up after every event, not just having things happen, in isolated events, they want to start connecting their experiences to create a web, go do a case competition, follow up with those people, let them know how it went. Things like that are going to be really important for really a transformative experience where they're coming out as a different kind of candidate than they entered as. And that's going to take a whole community of people for feedback and just connections moving into this new industry.
Perhaps an example of that, Kevin, at Tepper, the first days, there are so many opportunities, and you've described across different schools within the wider university. Important that they prioritize their time. I mean, there is plenty of opportunity to explore, but also keeping things on track and not maybe overreaching.
Yeah, I hate to overgeneralize, but at risk of doing so, and maybe Rebecca would agree with me here, anytime you're entering into graduate business education, right, regardless of whether it's a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year program, I think it's just so critical that to make the most of your experience, you come into that program and into that experience with a prioritized list of what exactly you're going to seek to achieve from the experience, right? There's sort of the given, right? The academic upskilling, you're there for some sort of career purpose, but above and beyond those two things, what are you looking to do, and how do you go about doing that? It will influence how you approach your leadership development at Tepper. It will influence how and where you engage with clubs and organizations, not just at Tepper, but outside of CMU. It will influence your coursework. It'll influence how you approach your faculty, staff, and administration, how you engage and learn outside of the classroom. I can't overemphasize really sitting down and taking some intentional time to think about what you're going to do over the course of that experience will make it all the richer, all the more rewarding for you, because you're exactly right. We have case competitions on campus. We have program-centric seminar series. We have Tepper-wide seminar series. We have CMU keynote speakers. There are conferences that our students will attend. There's a number of different ways, right? We talk about 40 plus different clubs on campus, elective classes in Tepper, outside of Tepper. There really is, I forget who said it, kind of kid in the candy shop, sort of an experience here with all the different options that you have. And so really being mindful about what you want, not just in a transactional sort of way, but in a developmental way as well. What you're looking to achieve this year is really important.
Right. So for viewers that are thinking about their next steps, even MBA versus specialized masters, and with everything that the two of you have shared, these incredible opportunities, Taking next steps, Rebecca, connecting with students or graduates, info sessions that you're holding, as they start their own research process, what would you point them towards and sort of welcome them to then be able to find out more about Zicklin?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things. One, if you just request information on our website, you will start receiving emails about our webinars, about things that we have going on. So that's a way to stay in the know. We have application workshop webinars. We have data science webinars where we compare all of our different programs, talk about the career impact. We have students and career coaches and professors on those. We also do mini classes on hot topics within the field. And a lot of times they are about data science things. And then you can make a one-on-one appointment with a member of the admissions team through our website. And then if you look at Zicklin Connect or something like that, you'll be able to see our page where we offer, all of our different opportunities. You can also connect with a student ambassador. So there are current students that have made themselves available for you to contact them and ask them about the clubs that they're taking advantage of, and how did they adjust to being a student again, and you can see their bio and their background. And so we have a range of ways for you to continue learning more, learn more about the Zicklin experience, as well as the curriculum, including hearing from faculty and maybe asking the very technical questions that you have about what you may be learning in the program.
Right. So lots of different voices, lots of different perspectives, perhaps similar for Tepper, even coming to either of the two campuses to visit. Kevin, how do you like to introduce the school and say, well, here are some of the different resources that might be helpful to you?
I've always felt, and my background's in admissions. I worked undergraduate admissions for a long time and sort of coordinated on-campus student experiences with prospective candidates. And I've been a believer for a long time that the best way to kind of get an experience is to get into the classroom, talk to the people who are going through it, talk to the people who are teaching the program, and engage in that regard. So a lot of what Rebecca commented here applies to us as well. Student ambassadors. We actually, as we were kind of ramping up our full-time program in the admissions for this first cohort, we had a lot of our current full-time students reach out to our part-time student ambassadors and alumni ambassadors, just getting a different type of perspective on the program. So talking to students who have gone through it or are going through it, I think is really the most beneficial piece. And I think above and beyond that, we class visits, opportunities to interact with and engage faculty. As we go through these last couple of rounds, we have round 3 and round 4 coming up over the next couple of months. I've spoken through all of my interactions that, at Tepper, we care very deeply, not just about you having a good experience when you're interacting with us, but we care about getting you to where you're supposed to be and where you're meant to be. So if that means counseling about which program you're looking at here at Tepper, if that means providing you with as much information as we can to help you make an informed decision about where you land, I believe that very much. My goal as the director of this program is to get prospective students to where they're meant to be, and Tepper CMU is a part of that journey, whether they land here or not. So I always tell students, reach out to me, find my contact info on the website, reach out, let me know if you have questions, tell me who you are, let me help you, let me advise you and guide you to that place of where you're meant to be.
Right. Rebecca, perhaps a final question. We've had a very strong job market in North America. Perhaps we're seeing cracks and SVB and just other uncertainties. Anybody that's looking to make this investment in themselves, it's a big step, it's a big commitment. And of course, where Zicklin makes their own commitment to an affordable graduate management experience. So, if you were to sum it up and say, think about investing in yourself, think about, developing your skills, opportunities, how would you capture and summarize that?
Yeah, so I think one thing is just the reality that graduate degrees are valued within employment. And a lot of students are like, I couldn't continue moving up. Everyone's moving up around me because I don't have a graduate degree. It's just a reality that it's become one of those requirements and expectations, especially when things start getting tight. They want somebody that can take on more responsibility and move up, especially into, higher levels of the organization. And so it's one of those things that nobody really regrets after they've done it, because they're like, now nothing's going to kind of keep me out of this role, for one thing. And then they have lots of abilities. A lot of our students will work with our career management center because we have a lot of people that are working professionals. And our MS Business Analytics program, we have people with 7-8 years experience in the program currently working, and they will work with the career management center to prepare for their annual evaluation and quantify their work. Because sometimes you're too close to it and you need somebody to step back and be like, no, but like, how do you quantify this? And you're like, oh, this is for like an outsider to be able to see it, because it's just, you're like, I can't summarize my work. They get assistance with negotiation and how to shadow and get on different projects, and how to network within their organization and let somebody know that they're interested in positioning themselves or transitioning. How to do this if you're currently employed and you're talking to a competitor. So I think there's a lot of strategy for people that are working. And then, because our program is self-paced, somebody can take a full-time course load one semester and the next semester take 2 classes, because they get a job and they're like, okay, and they don't have to fully scale back and choose to not be in the program. They can take advantage of the job as soon as it comes up. And because our classes are outside of a 9 to 5, even if you're taking a full course load, it won't conflict with most traditional day jobs. So you're able to take advantage of those when they do come by without having to give up one thing or the other. That's a big life decision.
Right. So there's that competitive edge, and I'm sure, Tepper graduates in the job market. Perhaps at the personal level, Kevin, anything that you would add, having made this investment in yourself, why that will always prove to be rewarding?
Yeah, I believe very much in all of what Rebecca said. She didn't leave much there to add. But what I would say is that I think in this space of what we're talking about, right, business analytics, we're talking about upskilling. A graduate degree is going to be beneficial to you in your career and your growth. But also, consider what we're talking about here as well, right? As we're in a space where data and the amount of data that we have at our fingertips, that companies, governments, nonprofits have at their fingertips, is only going to grow and grow exponentially. And the ability, and thus the skill, to really understand how and where and when to use that data in a way that is of benefit to our society, in a way that's of benefit to your organization. That's also a key part of this conversation. So yes, you're getting that graduate degree. Yes, you're upskilling, but you're upskilling in what we at Tepper here believe very firmly is sort of the way of the future. And so the skill set's necessary. It's needed. It's essential, even if you want to stay afloat in the business world over the next several decades and on into the future.
Yeah. Well, but both of you have captured this essence of both the present, the dynamic present, and whether it's in marketing, healthcare, we've discussed so many sectors, but how pervasive and just how it will continue to expand. So, coming back to either of your schools, upskilling, as you've described it, the sort of opportunities that will then provide, both great ambassadors for your schools, for the programs. Of course, that invitation to all of our viewers to connect with your students, with the faculty, just to get a better sense, and lots of different options that you provide. So I guess, Rebecca, Kevin, thanks for a great session to bring so much color, not just for the programs and the career opportunities, but within that wider context of personal and professional development. I think that was incredibly valuable to our viewers. Thanks to both of you.